Greenlightnetwork presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. It's Saturday morning, and we're ready to get into a weekend of NFL games. Full slate this week after the 6 bye week, so we got a lot to go over. Not a lot I like, I will say that. I have a nice little bracket of games that I liked and a handful of player props, but I think this big slate just sort of, after we've had the bye weeks, made it a little bit more difficult to pick games. Also, I think we're now at that point in the season where, we're basically in teams no longer really care about winning games. It's more about getting young players on the field and getting draft picks. If anybody watched that Texans-Dallas game last week, I don't think I've seen 4 worse plays on the goal line ever in my life than the Texans, I guess, trying to get a touchdown there to seal off the game. And then magically, after putting pressure on Dak, all of a sudden they're in the prevent there. So, what do you make of this slate? Full slate. We're at that last push of the season. Are you into the games this week, or are you a little light?
I'll be honest with you. I'm a little light this week. I do like a couple of the games featured this Saturday and Sunday. But overall, I think that the slate of games isn't too intriguing for bettors. I think that next week's actually looking a lot better just from what I saw. But I still managed to come up with some bets here, some nice props, and hopefully we can make some money.
Yeah, I actually probably got a couple more bets on the games Saturday than I do, pound for pound, on Sunday. But I guess let's kick things off. They certainly were not in the entertainment factor for these early Saturday games. But the Indianapolis Colts go to the Minnesota Vikings. Everybody who had been crying that the Minnesota Vikings didn't get any respect, I think we all saw what the Minnesota Vikings are. Our only hope is that they can continue to win games weirdly, and I get some plus points in a playoff matchup. But Colts go to the Vikings here. Vikings 3.5-point favorites. I know you were excited about a parlay you told me at the beginning of the week. Sadly, I must say, I'm going to be on the Vikings this week, which probably means they're going to lose by 30 points to this terrible Colts team. But, I can buy the Vikings going to the Lions and being, dogs. 3.5 just seems pretty low for this Indianapolis Colts team, which really has nothing to play for. As poor as I think this Vikings defense is, I think it will be good enough to withstand the Indianapolis Colts. And I certainly think the Vikings will be able to get offense at home versus Colts defense, which hasn't shown to be all that strong. So what do you make of this Colts-Vikings game at 3.5 here?
And listen, as you mentioned, it's probably not the most entertaining matchup that we've had this season. But still, there's a good possibility here for some explosive plays, especially from Minnesota's offense. But it leaves a little to be desired as far as matchups go for our first Saturday slate of games here. I looked around, and a lot of the props on this game seem to be watered down or juiced, as some people like to say. So there wasn't really too much to choose from, in my opinion. I didn't get a chance to do a lot of shopping around to different sports books, but what I did find, like I said, I was able to find something, not a huge slate here, but I'll give you a couple picks that I got for this game here. As you mentioned, I still think Minnesota is going to manage to pull off a win here, even as poor as they played last week. I still think that the better team. Indianapolis doesn't really have much to play for other than a little bit of pride. Somehow they're still somewhat in the race here, but I think they know that their chances are pretty slim here. So I'll give you my players for this game. I'm going to go ahead and write Minnesota minus 3.5 here at minus 110. I don't think the spread is too crazy, especially when you look at what each offense brings to the table, which is another reason why I was able to find an alternate spread here. And I've got Minnesota minus 6 at plus 120. And my last play here, it's just a prop bet. The only one that I found that had any value here, a guy who seems to be getting targeted a lot more lately, is Adam Thielen here. Anytime touchdown, plus 145. I thought everything else, not great value, but probably a little safer.
Yeah, I thought everything was pretty juiced in this game, unless you wanted to go after some unders, which I must admit is difficult to do in a game like this, just because the Vikings can rack up yards versus Colts team. And, if I came back and told you tomorrow, oh, Taylor had 150 yards on the Vikings, or Pittman, caught 10 balls for 90 yards, it wouldn't be like, oh, what a stunning development here. So they really juiced it on the overs if you want to take those, or you mentioned touchdowns like Thielen, and I was just a no-go on that. And I didn't really like unders because I don't trust any of these teams, defensively to really shut anybody down, even as poor as the Colts, really have been offensively this year. It's just this Vikings team's awful, defensively. So I'm just going to go straight, take Viking spread. That's all I really, really got. I think they're better than this. I'm always here to be disappointed, though, with the Vikings.
And this is the thing, this Vikings team, offensively, they have a lot of firepower. Defensively is where they really struggle so far this season. And it's almost like the opposite for this Colts team. Their defense isn't horrible. I mean, you look at their defensive rankings, it's not horrible. They just can't keep up because their offense hasn't been able to sustain, long drives and putting up points the way that this Colts team was able to do last season. So, I'm with you, man. I think the spread's probably the way to go here in this one. Not too much on the props. It's all watered down.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to our next game. I think scoring will be at a premium in this one. Tyler Huntley is a go. He did get cleared. Ravens at the Browns. I'm going to be big on the Ravens here. Honestly, I watched that game last week versus the Bengals. You knew I was heavy on the Browns on that one, and I was just stupid. The Browns offense was beyond abysmal. They couldn't even get Chubb going versus Bengals team, and I actually thought the Cleveland Browns defense stepped up a little bit and shut down that Bengals team, keeping them in the game. And Watson's just not ready to play NFL football right now. Receiver-wise, I guess Cooper's there. He gets his, handful of catches, but I wouldn't say anything he does makes an impact. It's, he has a couple in routes that he hits. Watson looks poor. Everybody is junked up against the run, so they can't get that going, and it's just nothing, absolutely nothing on offense, even when they do play defense, which they hadn't even done. I thought their defense came out to play in that Bengals game, and their offense just offered nothing in this one. Baltimore, a gutty win versus Pittsburgh to go in there. I thought they controlled the game. They beat up, the Pittsburgh offense, got turnovers. You saw J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards start to run the ball a little bit in that one. Maybe those two can get healthy. It would be nice to sort of see this Ravens team, if they could get that triangle together with Jackson, Dobbins, Edwards, all healthy. I think it would probably be the first time since... sometime in 2020, maybe 2019. I don't remember, but it's been a while since the whole triangle has been healthy and running. But what do you make of this Ravens sort of Browns game here?
Listen, you pretty much nailed it. This Browns offense isn't really ready because of the quarterback position. You would have to assume that there was going to be sort of a drop off. Not that they were playing great offense to begin with, but you assumed there was going to be a little bit of a drop off just because the quarterback hadn't seen any action all season long, and he wasn't able to practice with the team until late. And after I believe it was halfway through the season, once he was able to actually get into the practice facility. So there's definitely some learning there's a learning curve here, and it's some growing pains are gonna come along with this process here. So for that same reason, I'm with you. I think that Baltimore is probably the play here. I'm definitely a little more timid with this game just because I don't know what we're going to get out of either team here. I'll give you a couple plays that I was able to come up with, but this personally, I would recommend these picks only if you have a gut feeling as well. I'm just going with my gut on this. And I'm not going to push them out there as must plays. I think this is more if you have a gut feeling or you have a free bet lying around, then maybe you can jump on some of these. But I'm not super 100% confident on these. And my plays for this one, obviously Nick Chubb anytime touchdown. I expect him to get going again this week. He got shut down completely last week, and it's not something we've seen pretty much all season long. He's been the workhorse for that Cleveland offense. I got Huntley over 174.5 passing yards at minus 120. I know it doesn't seem like a lot of yards, but they also don't have a lot of wide receivers. So again, another reason why I'm a little timid with that. And my last one here for this one is Peoples-Jones, anytime touchdown at plus 220. I know that he's not the number one guy there, but he seems to be targeted, especially under duress. So there's a good chance that he can get into the end zone here, maybe in some garbage time or something like that. But again, not recommended plays. These are just plays that were, if you hear them and you're like, oh, that sounds like a pretty good bet, then maybe you could throw a flyer on it. But it's just the best I could come up with in that game.
Yeah, I got a handful of plays in this one that I'm going to ride. One under the 38 I thought was a must in this one from what you've seen. You saw Baltimore last week. They were pretty conservative. Now, I know Huntley left that game, but even before that, they were still pretty conservative with Huntley running sort of a pretty tight-shipped offense. So I'm going under the 39. I'm also doing an alternate. This didn't work out for me all that well last week because, Tampa Bay just blows. But I'm going under 28.5 plus 350 on this one. And then I'm going to take Baltimore plus the 2.5. I don't love it, but I think Baltimore getting plus versus Cleveland. I go after. Then I got a couple player plops in this one. Cleveland has been really, really poor against the run. You saw that again last week. Mixon had a really good game, and they only gave him carries. Same with P. Ryan. So I'm going anytime touchdown. Dobbins, Huntley, and Edwards. Plus 195 on Dobbins, plus 285 on Edwards, plus 245 on Huntley. I might end up crossing out that Huntley one just because he's coming off the concussion. I don't think they want to drop, down to that third string Oregon quarterback. He came in and played, I'd say okay, but they basically asked him to hand the ball off. I don't think they want to risk that, especially with Huntley coming back from the concussion. So they might be a little less likely to give Huntley, tight carries because the concussion he got was off a 3rd and 1, run where he dove head first and got popped in the head. So maybe cross out the Huntley one. J.K. Dobbins 2+ touchdowns at 14-1. And then J.K. Dobbins 100+ rushing yards at plus 880. I'm curious. I thought last week watching that Browns game that they've already sort of punted on this season. Chubb 14 carries. They seemed really, really interested in sort of trying to find a way to get Deshaun Watson going. Do you think they'll start reducing carries again for Chubb this week and just sort of see if they can find Watson's level and get him comfortable? Or do you think maybe they go back, sort of to at least a more balanced? That game was tight and it was like Chubb 1 carry, Watson, either rolling him out in sort of to a run or, trying to pass. I didn't like the game plan. Let's just say that.
Well, I mean, it's a very interesting question you pose. We talked about Chubb, how he's been the workhorse for this offense pretty much all season long. Now, we knew Deshaun Watson wasn't going to be there for the majority of the season, and we kind of anticipated that it was going to be a run-heavy team, which they have been pretty much all season long. This last game, we saw a lot more of Kareem Hunt than we've seen over the last few weeks prior to Deshaun Watson coming back. And I think part of that's because he's a much better scat back, kind of a pass catcher from the backfield. So it adds another wide receiver weapon or wide receiver-esque weapon for Deshaun Watson to kind of get comfortable and kind of, start setting his roots as the man there. But it's weird because, if I'm just looking at this team as a better, I want them to go back to the ground and pound style offense because they were having some success offensively when they focused on the rushing attack first and the passing second. But I understand from a franchise perspective what they're trying to do here. They're probably trying to save some wear and tear on Nick Chubb, who's going to be their main weapon, and trying to get Deshaun Watson more comfortable. But it's weird, man. It's really hard to predict, which is one of the reasons why normally I'd be pretty high on a Chubb anytime touchdown because he's been so good this season. But that's why I'm so timid because when you get that feeling watching that game last week that they're probably trying to pull away from him, prevent some wear and tear off of him, use Hunt, which they probably won't hold on to next season, and to get Watson a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, we saw the exact same thing. I will say I didn't like it. That's probably what was. I didn't think Hunt played all that well. They gave him a lot of stuff. He looked slow to me. Now, that might have just been the Cincinnati defense, but I thought he looked slow catching the ball. Now, some of that might have been Watson and the timing off. I just thought Hunt didn't look explosive as I've seen him in the past, and I didn't think they utilized Chubb. Maybe that's a conscious thing, but it didn't seem to help their offense any, which gave me a little bit of pause. All right, let's move into the game at night. That's really the sort of buzz of the Saturday games. Dolphins go to the Bills. Interesting spot here for Miami, especially coming off 2 losses here. Long West Coast trip up to San Francisco, down to Los Angeles, and now cross country into Buffalo. This is a hard little triangle. They're staring at 0-3 here. I know the Vultures have come back out because Tua hasn't played great for 2 games. I can't take, listening to this culture. 3 weeks ago, he was an MVP candidate and the best quarterback in the league. And now all of a sudden they don't want him back next year and we want him benched and he shouldn't be an NFL quarterback at all. It's week to week judgment rankings for quarterbacks, which drives me nuts. I'd say their problem is more on the defensive side of the ball. They haven't been able to literally stop anyone for maybe 6 weeks here. This is, of course, this Dolphins defense has looked in, a handful of years. What do you make of this game? Miami, it's always a pit of horrors going into Buffalo, basically on weather. They did get the win earlier in the year in Miami, but if you watch that game, Buffalo ran 90 plays, had like 550 yards of offense to Miami's like 250. It was a game Miami won on the scoreboard, but if you looked at it, Buffalo was the better team. I wouldn't say Buffalo is playing as well as they were at that point in the season, but what do you make of Dolphins-Buffalo here?
Well, I mean, it's definitely the most entertaining game that we have slated for the Saturday set of games, but as you mentioned, you have Miami going into Buffalo now. Miami already beat them once this season. As you mentioned, though, if you watch that game, if you didn't look at the final score, you would probably assume that Buffalo pulled off a win there. But Miami was able to come up with a win. And going into Buffalo, bad weather, Miami doesn't really have a good history of coming in there and getting wins here. I also don't think that Miami's really built for this type of weather. Yeah, they have some pretty good running backs, and Tua's got the ability to get out and scramble, but this team is too fast. And one thing that fast doesn't do well with is bad weather conditions. So I'm not quite certain if it's going to be snowy or icy or wet, but I know that it's going to be cold. And as good as this Miami offense is, it scares me a little bit because this Buffalo team, I feel like can switch it up because of Allen.
Yeah.
Their rushing attack isn't all that great. It's gotten better from what it was last season, but it's still not great. Still not where we would like it to be. It's weird, man. And so I'm giving you all these things about how Miami's not going to do good in cold weather and all that, but yet I'll give you my place for it. I'm actually going to take Miami here with the points at +7. I think that Buffalo hasn't been playing good enough to warrant a 7-point spread, especially with bad weather. I could totally see this being a low-scoring affair. And listen, I wouldn't be shocked if it's not. But, you got two very explosive offenses. But, again, the weather's going to play a factor in this, especially when you talk about Buffalo. So I'll give you my plays. Like I said, I got Miami here +7. I'm going to go ahead and write the points here. I think that they can keep it close. I got Josh Allen, anytime touchdown at +170. That's mostly a gut feeling with the weather being bad. They might have to rely on his legs a lot more than they've been doing so far this season. So I think there's a good shot for him to get into the end zone. Miami's defense has not been that good. They're not what they were last season. They've been winning games because of their offense. I've got Singletary anytime touchdown here at +175. And this is also just like Josh Allen. You think that they're going to rely a lot more on the running game with the weather being as bad as it's probably going to be. And then my last one here is Gesicki anytime touchdown. And that's more of I assume that if somehow Miami can get it in close, it'll probably be more of a mid-range game. And I don't trust the rushing attack that well. So I think they might look for more of a security blanket down the middle, which is why I'm going to write Gesicki. But don't feel super confident in all these picks. It's just the way I kind of see the game playing out.
Yeah, I would say also you saw it last week in the Dolphins game. Their offensive line's pretty banged up. Some of those guys are playing, but they're clearly hurt. And they didn't even try to run the ball last week in that Chargers game, which, shocked me a little. But if you don't trust your offensive line, I get it, and maybe don't totally trust your running backs. I know Miami's starting to get a little near that in the playoff mix part where they aren't a guaranteed playoff spot and people are going after must win in this one. I don't know if this is a much win. You got Packers, you got Patriots, you got Jets to close out the season. Two of those home games. I think they are more than capable of winning all three of those, at least two of those. I think two more wins gets the Dolphins in there. So I don't look at this as a must win. It would be nice to go in there and win. But I like your thought. I didn't like the 7. I'm not gonna grab Buffalo in this. I didn't like the way Miami looked last week, so I probably won't grab the 7 in that. If I was taking a bet, I would take the 7. Though I think the Bills have sort of gotten in a little bit of that Chiefs territory where they're always going to get big spreads, but they're more concerned about just winning the game and ending that. You saw that again last week in the Jets game where they got up about 20-3. They sort of just packed it in a little bit, and the Jets sort of climbed back in it and ended up covering the 9.5 by an 8-point loss. I think they're also sort of protecting themselves injury-wise. I think Allen's still beat up a little bit. The defense, as you know, has been banged up a lot of the year, and they just don't want to put the wear and tear, especially when they know they're going to need to, kick it up a notch in the playoffs. So if I was taking something, it'd probably be that 7 for the Dolphins. I'm not going after that. I do like the Gabriel Davis 2+ touchdowns at 14-1. You saw in that Chargers game, they had a lot of difficulty guarding Mike Williams, big receiver. Now, Davis isn't as tall as Mike Williams, but he's still a big, red zone target, and you saw that. So I think there's a chance Gabe Davis, 2+ touchdowns at 14-1. Pretty good value here. So I got Gabe Davis, 2+ touchdowns. There'll be a parlay later. You can probably figure out what it's going to be. One day I will hit that, and then I can stop taking it. I don't know if this is the week to really be going after it.
The triple threat.
Yeah,
it's coming. I can feel it. I can feel it.
Yeah, we're going to feel it for like 10 years. And I think it hit like the first week of the season. It's probably never going to hit again. All right.
I'd have to go back and look at it. I don't remember.
Let's go. Oh, it probably hit that Titans game when everybody scored like 5
Shocker.
touchdowns apiece.
That's shocking.
We'll get to that game in a little bit. Eagles Bears. Honestly, I didn't have anything on this one. The Eagles numbers were all juiced up, and then I just don't know what the Bears are. They're coming off a bye. I didn't want to touch Eagles on the road, -8 on a bye, but I wasn't touching the Bears because they're sort of in, we want to win, but we really don't because we like to hover in the sort of top 4 picks, and they're right on that line. And I guess it means a lot to the Eagles to keep winning games, but really they pretty much locked most of the stuff up that they need to lock up. So I was a no-go all over the place in this one. I think if I was taking something, it'd probably be the Bears 8 at home, but I'd like to see how they're going to close out this season. If we're going to get a true sort of Justin Fields audition, or we're sort of going to get more of a let's squeeze this in and make sure we get a top 4 draft pick kind of mode here from the Bears, especially defensively as poor as they've been. So what did you like in this Eagles-Bears game?
I'll tell you what I like. First of all, I like the fact that we've got Fields versus another one of the up and coming quarterbacks in the league. What the most intriguing part about this game to me is probably watching this Philadelphia defense. They've quietly been actually pretty good. They can get after the quarterback, and the corner secondary is much improved from what it was last season. They've actually been pretty fun to watch. But more interested in watching the duel between the quarterbacks here. Both of them are very athletic. Both of them can get chunks of yardage on the ground at any given time. And I think that changes kind of the aspect of the way the game can go. I'm not touching the 8 points. Now, listen, if you were to tell me that on Monday morning, can you believe the Eagles won by 21? I wouldn't be shocked by that because they're that good. But I'm still not going to touch the spread. I think it's too risky with 2 quarterbacks that have the ability to run the way they do. So I'll tell you what my plays are for this one. I've got Philly first half at -5.5. I'm not in love with that spread, but I'm going to go ahead and ride it just because they've been pretty good in first half so far this season. I've got a Smith anytime touchdown at +100. From all the other prop bets I saw for anytime touchdown, this probably had the best odds. Everything else seemed to be really juiced and watered down here. I've got Justin Fields under 164 passing yards. This is kind of more of a feel. I think that it's going to be more of a rushing attack. I mentioned how that Eagles defense can get after quarterback. They're probably going to force him out, and he'll be able to get some yards on the ground, but I don't know if he sticks in the pocket how much he'll actually be able to get. And my last one here, I've got Montgomery over 14.5 receiving yards. Not a huge part of the passing game. But again, if it comes down to a situation where they're getting after him and he's got to get out and find a receiver, he's probably going to go look for a check down, which is more than likely going to be Montgomery here. So those are my plays for this game. Again, not too crazy about this week's bets, but, there's some that I really like, some that I don't like too much, and some that I'm okay with recommending, and this is one of them.
Yeah. All right, let's go on. Like I said, I got nothing in this one. Let's go to the Cowboys-Jags. I don't know what we're getting here. We're either getting good Jags or bad Jags. Cowboys, it might be good Cowboys. It might be bad Cowboys. You should probably just take alternate spread both teams to win by 20 plus, because I feel like someone's going to play awful and someone's going to play really good. It's just sort of hard to judge which is going to be which. I've watched the Jags the last 3 weeks. 2 of those weeks I thought they played really, really well, and then they had the dud versus the Lions. In hindsight, it doesn't look as bad as the Lions continue to play well. I think this Dallas secondary is pretty banged up. I think the Jags will be able to throw on them. Not only that, I don't know if he's wearing down, but that was the worst I'd seen Micah Parsons play probably in his whole career. Last week versus that Texans team, I they utilize him all over the field. Maybe he's starting to get banged up a little bit. And I think we've mentioned it on previous shows. If this Cowboys defense starts to drop, that offense still just doesn't look right to me. I opened the show talking about it. Basically, the Texans had to call the 4 worst goal line plays in the history of mankind not to put that game away. And then after they did that, they set and prevent defense, basically just begging the Cowboys to throw underneath for 10 plays and get that touchdown to win the game. So I like the Jags here getting 4. I always like the Jags more as a plucky underdog than a favorite, but they still have something to play for. If they can get this one, then got the Titans, flipped around and win, 2 of those games, they sort of still are sitting there for the division. So I want to see if the Jazz can step up here. But I'm thoroughly ready for them to no-show and do some stupid stuff as well. What do you make of Cowboys, Jags?
This Cowboys team is so intriguing and not in a good way all the time. You saw last week, this defense that's probably a lot of people consider to be one of the best defenses in the league. I still think the Niners are the best defense, but a lot of people consider this Dallas defense to be one of the best defenses, if not the best defense. They do have a lot of stud players on defense, but as you mentioned, last week, that defense did not look good. And I think it all starts with that secondary. They're definitely susceptible. They got some playmakers. They got some ball hawks, but they don't have shutdown corners. And because of that, a lot of times you see these guys biting on certain plays, trying to make a play, and it ends up hurting them. And you saw it in that Texans game. I do think they bounce back this week. I think that they probably got a little bit of a wake-up call last week when they probably overlooked this Houston team coming into town. And I think they get back on track here. My biggest concern with this Cowboys team is the quarterback play. I like Dak Prescott. I think he's a likable guy. I think he's a likable player. The problem is that he makes too many mistakes. For a guy of his caliber, a lot of people look at him as like one of the elite quarterbacks. I personally don't. I don't think he's there. But a lot of people look at him as an elite quarterback, yet he makes a lot of mistakes that elite quarterbacks shouldn't be making. If this Dallas team can get back to the fundamentals of play strong defense and run the ball well with Elliott and so I'm drawing a blank here.
Pollard,
yeah. Pollard. Yeah, if they can get back, to run the ball well like they have been, over that big stretch of wins, then I think they'll be fine, especially going up against this Jacksonville team, which is susceptible defensively to giving up points. Offensively, sometimes they're clicking, sometimes they're not. It's hard to really determine which Jacksonville team we're going to get. Trevor Lawrence is getting better. He's still not quite there yet, but you would assume that there's going to be pretty much a growing he's going to have to develop himself throughout the season because last year wasn't really a rookie season for him. I'm looking at this as his rookie season because of all the turmoil he dealt with last season. So I'll give you my plays really quick. Just I don't want to keep rambling on about these two teams, but I've got Dallas here -4 at -110. I'm also going to write Dallas at -2.5 for the first half. I think they're going to come out really aggressive, running the ball and trying to stop them on defense. I've got CeeDee Lamb anytime touchdown. This Jacksonville team is somewhat susceptible to passing attack. They're kind of at the lower end of their passing defense for yardage. So I got CeeDee Lamb anytime touchdown +100. And, this Ezekiel Elliott and Pollard thing, it's almost like a pick and choose. I said it last week when I was giving my bets. I had a parlay with both of them to score. And I've also said that you can pick and choose if you wanted to just ride one of these guys because they seem to average about the same. Pollard's a little more involved in the passing game. Zeke is probably a little more involved in the goal line stance. But I'm going to write Zeke here. Over 68.5 rushing yards and receiving yards combined at -110. Against this Jacksonville team, I think he can do it. So not super solid plays, not a huge amount of picks here, but I think pretty solid ones, and I feel pretty comfortable in some of these plays.
Yeah, I got 2. I mentioned it, Jags +4. I also got a couple parlays in this one, but Jags +4, and then I'm going to take Christian Kirk +550, 100+ receiving yard. I mentioned their problems in the secondary. Now, it's a little hard to go real aggressive on this, especially at the 550 number. I thought it'd be in the high sixes, sevens, but especially since like Zay Jones and Evan Ingram, other guys have started to get involved in the Jacksonville receiver game. So, but I think Kirk can get deep a couple times in this one. So 100 plus Christian Kirk plus 550 as well as the Jags plus 4. We'll go to our next game. Probably not a lot to break down. I don't really have any bets in this one. Chiefs Texans. Chiefs 14.5. You know me, I'm not touching spreads like that this big. Texans have been able to cover these big spreads, but I'm not real big on the worst quarterback tandem.
Two-quarterback system.
In the history of mankind. I don't know if Pierce is playing either. So the only weapon that the Texans really had offensively might not be in this game. So I'm a no-go. If you were asking me which side I'd be on, you'd know I'd be on the point side. And the Texans have shown they can sort of cover in these games. And the Chiefs, for basically the last 3 years, have shown they don't really care if they cover these kind of spreads. So I'd take Texans 14.5, but I got nothing in this one. What do you expect out of Chiefs Texans?
Listen, I'm with you. We saw last week the spread with Houston and Dallas was pretty wide.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were jumping on this Dallas team because of how good they were putting up points and stopping people from putting up points. And we kind of told people not to ride that spread because of how wide it was. And it actually turned out to be a smart play on our hand. But I'm with you there. I think that if you were going to play anything, I think you probably take the points here. This Kansas City team seems to be on cruise control right now, especially going up against a team like Houston that I think they can beat pretty much on any given Sunday. So I don't think they'll come out super aggressive here, but I don't have a play in this one. I will say that earlier in this week, I did take Kansas City in a money line parlay, and I got them at minus, I think it was 450 or 400. And when I looked at it this morning, it was minus 1,000. So I'm assuming Pierce is probably out, and that's probably one of the reasons for the big change. And as you mentioned it also, there's probably been a lot of money coming in here, which is another reason for the change in that spread and the odds for that one. So I'm a no play for this one also. I don't like anything on there. Obviously, Kelsey's probably the number one target for Kansas City, but his odds are definitely juiced.
Yeah,
and I don't think there's much value there.
I looked at his 2 touchdowns. It was plus 245.
Yes, I know. That's ridiculous. 2 touchdowns.
I was like, is there a no option on that?
It's crazy, man. I mean, you would expect 2 touchdowns, at least 6-7 to 1 for a stud guy like him. I mean, it's not even 3 to 1.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, it was not something I had interest in taking. I was like, somebody offer me the minus 330 on no, and I'll ride that for 15 of the 17 games he plays where he doesn't get 2 touchdowns. All right, this next game, I don't have any bets on because I just don't know how it's going to play out, but it's a really, really big game. I think you can pretty much say loser leaves town in this one because neither can really afford to lose. But Lions go to the Jets. No Mike White after he sacrificed his soul trying to win that game last week. Versus the Bills. Zach Wilson's going to get the start in this one, so I just didn't know what way to go. There's some question marks along that Jets defensive line as well, so I couldn't be real aggressive on this Saturday until I know if basically Quinn Williams was playing or not, which is a huge sort of yes or no. But I like this Lions team, and, it's very weird because I think Dan Campbell has done a great job of keeping this team together and having them play hard. Game management wise, there are probably 3 games in there where if he's not on the sideline,
they probably win.
They probably win. So I don't know what to do with that. You go, wow, he's really kept this team together, has played hard all year long, but he's also probably cost him 3 games with the way he's managed the end. So what do you do with that? I don't know. And I'm just a little hesitant to grab the Lions on the road, outside, in cold weather, with a team that gets after the quarterback. I think we both think Jared Goff is a little better than a lot of people think. But we both also know if Jared Goff is starting to get pressured, bad things begin to happen. And the one thing this Jets team has done all year long is put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. But I'm also not real big on taking this Jets team and Zach Wilson, who basically got voted out of the quarterback position because nobody liked him. So I don't know what way to go here. So I was a no-go, but I'm really intrigued to see how these two teams play against each other.
I agree with you. I think that this is probably going to be a really underrated matchup here. I don't think anybody who didn't grow up or lives in Detroit is a bigger fan of this Lions team than me. I've been talking about them all season long, and the one time that I went against them, actually going up against one of my most hated teams, Minnesota, it ended up costing me. So I don't have a play in this one necessarily. I do have one depending on as you mentioned, the official report as far as who's suiting up for that Jets defense. If for some weird reason they're missing some of their interior linemen on defense, then I think there's a pretty good play here with Swift anytime touchdown at plus 150. That's a big if, though. Other than that, I think that probably the only play that you could probably take with any form of confidence would probably be the under 43.5 at minus 110. Don't feel too great about that, but this Jets defense is legit. They're good. That secondary, they do give up plays, but they don't give up a lot of plays, and they do a pretty good job at shutting down just about everybody they go up against. Sauce Gardner has been doing an outstanding job for such a young guy. But this Detroit offense, though, I mean, they're fun to watch. For a team that we had very low expectations coming into the season, it's been a nice surprise. And like I said, depending on who's suiting up for this Jets defense, there might be a play here. But I think as of now, it's probably just a sit and wait. Yeah,
I think this is just one it's really hard to gamble on because you don't know what Detroit's going to come out and do on the road, outdoors versus a defense like this, and I don't think you can trust the Jets offense really at all. Maybe if Mike White was healthy and out there, maybe you trust him a little bit more, but I just can't do it with Zach Wilson out there. So I'm a no-go on the bet, but I definitely will have the game on. So I'll be watching that one for sure. Next up, the pride of the NFC South. This possibly, I think we thought the NFC East was awful a couple years ago, but this one, wow.
Hey, to be fair, outside of the Eagles coming into the season, we probably thought the NFC East was still probably pretty bad. But they've turned it around. So I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're right. I think we did think the NFC South was going to be bad. I didn't think we probably thought Tampa Bay would be as god-awful as they are. But the Falcons go to the Saints. Ritter takes over at quarterback. They're coming off a bye. I'm really big on the Falcons this week. I think Ritter will sort of give them poise that they need. They'll be able to throw the ball a little bit better, get back to the run game. I think the Saints are done. The one team I will say in the sort of NFC South that I think is done is, well, they're all done, I should say. But the one team I think has no chance of putting together a couple wins and winning this division would be the Saints. I think Atlanta here plays inspired with Ritter back there at quarterback. So I'm grabbing the +4. I don't think home field will matter. I like taking the Saints in the dome here, but I think Falcons get this. I think +4, really, really good number here. So I'm going Falcons +4. I think Ritter and company get it done in this one.
It's funny because we're kind of on the same wavelength here. The only difference is that I don't have the footballs that you do to go ahead and take a spread here. So what I did is I'm just going to go ahead and write a couple prop bets, and I don't even have that many to begin with. I've got 2 here. I've got Taysom Hill anytime touchdown at +115. This Atlanta defense isn't great. No. They give up points, and we know what kind of a Swiss Army knife Hill can be. So I've got Hill anytime touchdown.
The problem is your boy Dennis Allen doesn't put him in 4th and 1 situations for some reason.
You would think that he would have some tape on this guy and see what a weapon he is. Just either first, second, third, or fourth down. He's a good weapon to have back there. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and ride him. Let's see. I've also got Cordell Patterson over 10.5 receiving yards at -120. As you mentioned, I think that they're going to come out a little inspired with their quarterback, and I think that he might have some situations where he's going to have to check down. And Cordell Patterson is an amazing athlete here. So 10.5 yards, I don't think is too far of a stretch. But divisional opponents are always kind of weird. They tend to play each other pretty tough. So that's why I don't have the footballs you do. I'm not going to write a spread. I'm going to write these prop bets.
Yeah, I got a couple prop bets. I'm going to go heavy on the Drake London. I got Drake London anytime touchdown +185. Drake London 2+ touchdowns 13-1, and Drake London 90+ yards 680. I think the Falcons hit a couple big plays. You've seen the Saints give up big plays all season long, so I think they get a couple big plays off the play action. I'd also look into Cordell. Like you said, you like the receiving prop. They haven't used him as much since he's come back. I don't know how healthy he is.
You would think with the change of quarterback, it might actually change it up.
Yeah, I do think with the change of quarterback, he might get a little bit more action. So I think ride the Falcons' explosive plays in this game. But I'm going to go Drake London here, 90+ +680. So I really like Drake London this week in this one. All right, we'll move on to... What? Before
you go on to the next one really quick, just because there's a couple questions here in the chat, I'll ask you, being the main man here.
All right.
We got a couple people who want to know Chubb and Cook today. How do you feel about that?
I think Cook definitely will have a big day. I know they haven't been running him much, but I think today in this matchup, I really would go Cook heavy versus this Colts team. You've seen them defensively struggle against the run. I think the Vikings will get back to the run a little bit. I thought they got a little pass happy in that Lions game, which cost them a little bit. So I like that. Chubb, we already talked about it.
We talked about Chubb,
a little bit. I did not like what I saw last week, where they sort of reduced his carries. I didn't look at the number of total plays each were on the field, but from watching the game, I thought Hunt it might not have been a 50-50 split, but it was certainly much closer to a 50-50 split.
It felt that way.
And basically every pass play that they called, it was Hunt, not Chubb, on the field. So it would be difficult to bench Chubb if you're playing in the fantasy league, certainly in the playoffs. But if it's an either-or option between Cook and Chubb, I think I'd ride Cook certainly this week, just because I didn't like that. Now, maybe they go back to it, but I was a little thrown off by as little as I sort of saw Chubb on the field. Maybe he's got an injury that we don't know about either, but it was disturbing to me how much Hunt I thought was on the field.
Now, I will add really quick before we move on that if we had some sort of inkling that this Browns offense is going to go back to what it was, then I'd rather probably take Chubb because he seems more of a workhorse.
Yeah.
Whereas in Cook, they kind of bring Madison in here and there, especially on goal situations. So if we knew for a fact that this Browns team, which I don't think they're going back to that ground and pound style offense.
I think they want to try to get Watson as many reps as they can. They were even running him last week out of the option. So I think their keys to this season, they know this year's done, is just to get him ready to go. And they're looking towards next year to sort of send Watson into full bore, and maybe they sort of put Chubb in sort of ice a little bit here and not put the wear and tear. It was just from what I saw in that game. And the game before, it was hard to judge in that Texans game because basically the Cleveland offense didn't do anything. The defense scored all the points. So it's sort of been 2 weeks of a little bit of a light Chubb carry load. And I was just disturbed by it, especially since I bet on Cleveland and I kept asking, why is Kareem Hunt out here? And why is Kareem Hunt getting off-tackle carries and DJ Reader swallowing them up every time out there? So it was a little disturbing to me. All right, let's stay a little bit in the NFC South here. Pittsburgh Steelers, Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers moving and cruising in that Seattle game. I really, really liked them in that one. They proved me right. They run the ball and they defend. Why they didn't do that at the start of the season, I don't know. But hey, whatever, they're doing it now, and they're in the worst division in football history, so they're sitting right there with a chance. We didn't like, I thought Pittsburgh would struggle in that game versus Baltimore. They did. I think defensively, they're starting to wear down. TJ Watt's whole body, I think, probably should be in a body cast right now, because I looked at the injury report, and basically it's like pec, rib. He had a arthroscopic knee procedure while the pec was hurt. I don't know why he's totally playing, probably because he wants to, but I just thought the run game gave up a lot to the Ravens team. That was the first time we'd seen signs of life from J.K. Dobbins, who's honestly still looked a little banged up in the game. It was not the J.K. Dobbins we saw like 2 years ago making explosive runs. So I think their defense is starting to wear down. There's no Kenny Pickett in this one. He left, with a concussion. And they were being coy. They did not say Mitchell Trubisky was the one that was going to start in this one. It was Mason Rudolph. And if we get Mason Rudolph, I just don't think Pittsburgh has any shot. I'm not so bold as to take the -3 here on Carolina. Like I said, I like them as underdogs, but I can't grab Carolina at the 3 here, even as much as I've sort of stuck with this team through the poor play of basically every quarterback that has ever played for the Carolina Panthers since Kerry Collins in maybe 1996. So what do you make of this Steelers-Panthers game?
I'll be honest with you, this is one of those games that I'm not super excited about. As you mentioned, you have a lot of star players like Watt, who's pretty banged up. You've got Pickett, who's not playing. I mean, there's some young guys, some up-and-comers that are probably interesting to watch, how they perform. But I don't think that there's a lot of, possibilities for big money here. Even when I was looking at some of the prop bets, I didn't think there was enough value here for the matchup that it posed. So I'm a no go on this one. I've got no plays on this one. I can't say that I'll sit here and watch it intently. This is probably one of those games that I'll probably have to go back and watch on NFL Rewind.
This one probably will. Well, I shouldn't say that because I watch all the Carolina Panthers games for some reason.
Yeah,
I'm attached to their pain that they inflict on me, but nothing to bet on. I don't know what to expect from the Steelers, and I don't like Carolina as favorites. You probably should just make it a wholesale rule not to take Sam Darnold with as a favorite ever in your life. Next up, another interesting game that I'm a no-go on, and basically it should be the same rule as the rule on Monday night, even though both of us broke said rule. You probably should not gamble on games like this. Luckily, this one's stuck in the pack of about 10 others, so it's not a solo. But Pats, Raiders. Raiders -1.5. Honestly, I don't know what to expect. Pats got the win on Monday night. Their offense still looked like complete hot garbage. They were trotting out running backs not even I have ever heard of. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I know a lot of dudes. And the guys they were throwing out at running back, I was like, who? I don't know. And we didn't touch on the Raiders on the Thursday night game versus the Rams, but I mean, Jesus.
Baker in the slime game.
How do you lose that game? Granted,
I'll tell you how. You're the Raiders, and you got McDaniels as your coach.
Yes, that's correct. I don't know. If you are gambling, leave this game alone would be my advice, but I'm a nothing on this. I guess I'd probably lean Raiders if you made me take a pick. but I have no basis for that other than I think they have a handful of better players. That would be about all I could give you. What are you looking at in this one?
Normally I really wouldn't take a play on this one. And when I first looked at the game, I looked at prop bets, I looked at everything, and there wasn't too much that I liked. I do think, as you mentioned, this Raiders team probably has more weapons, especially on offense with Adams and Jacobs, but it is the Raiders. And because I had a good feeling that the Raiders might win this game, I'll tell you what my play is. I got one play for this game. And it's either New England plus the 1.5 or New England money line here at plus 100. I know it sounds crazy. You're like, how is New England getting points on the board? But it's more about the defense and what that defense can do to this Raiders offense. Not just that, you've got the McDaniels versus Belichick thing going on here. I'm probably not going to lay a bet on this game, and I wouldn't recommend anyone to take one. But if I had to take something, the wife would probably be happy to know that I'd probably ride the Pats money line on this one.
Well, she might be the only one still watching Patriots games at this point.
Hey, listen, she loves it. She's enjoying it, okay? So I'm not going to say anything. I can't say anything, especially how bad my team is. So I just sit there and watch with her.
No one can watch this team's offense and say they enjoy
what
it.
offense?
All right, we'll move on to another game, though we are running up against the 1 o'clock one. So I did have a parlay involving all three. We're calling it the triple interception parlay. So 3-leg parlay, interception, Ryan, Watson, and Tua. So parlay,
Whoa, you put your boy Tua in that.
Well, he throws an interception every game. And in the snow, I for sure see one.
3 weeks ago, he was the best quarterback in the league, and now you've got him throwing picks every week.
They don't even want him to be signed next year. It's welcome to the NFL. You lose to the Niners and the Chargers, and you're no longer any good at
Not
football.
for long.
Nonetheless, so if we run over, I just made the parlay myself. So be sure to grab the interception parlay. Ryan, Watson, Tua. 3-team interception parlay. I think it plays plus 540. So almost even money on the 3-team parlay in that one. All right, let's get to another game no one should be gambling on, but for some stupid reason, I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know why. Arizona Cardinals plus 1.5 versus the Denver Broncos. This is what we call Gamblers Anonymous game special. Colt McCoy
If you have a problem with gambling, 1-800-GAMBLER.
Colt McCoy is battling Brent Rippon here. Neither of these teams are worth anything whatsoever. I don't know. I just think the Cardinals can beat the Broncos. I watched, and I had a lot of money on Brent Rippon, I don't know, week 4 or 5, whenever Russell Wilson missed the other game, and their offense was atrocious then. I look for it to be atrocious now. The Cardinals' offense isn't atrocious. It's maybe a level above atrocious, just bad. And I guess Denver's defense is still sort of good, but I just think Cardinals can get a couple more points than the Broncos here. So I'm going to take the plus 1.5, and all the Cardinals wins are basically on the road. So that hasn't been really a problem this year. That's my analysis of this one.
I'll give you my picks really quick just so we can kind of get past this game. And I've got the same idea that I do with this New England Raider game. I'm kind of rolling more on the defense now. I'm not going to ride a spread or a pick or anything on this one. I'll give you a couple of prop bets. I think that Murray has been kind of coming into his own. And without Russell Wilson there, I think he's probably going to have to – they're going to have to depend heavily on his offense here. So I got Murray anytime touchdown at plus 120. And then I've got him over 14.5 receiving yards at minus 110. I don't feel great about those picks. If you're a Denver Bronco fan, probably ride that. But I think that Denver's defense is probably going to be the difference maker in this game.
Yeah, I think so as well. All right, one more fantasy question here. Guillotine League, half PPR, pick 3, Kamara, Zeke, Pollard, Cook, A.J. Brown, or James Conner. I think you got to use Cook for sure. I'd go A.J. Brown, definitely versus the Bears. You've seen them sort of just get blitzed by big plays. Third one,
I was leaning a little bit more towards Pollard.
yeah,
It's just that with the half-point PPR, it's not as enticing. But with those other guys, he's probably going to get the most catches. It's just that half-point PPR, it doesn't always necessarily translate to whoever can get the most catches because you're not getting a full point out of it. But I do like the ones you mentioned.
I think Cook, A.J. Brown are the easy ones. I wouldn't go Connor just because the Broncos defense has shown up. Something's telling me to maybe ride Kamara just because that Falcons defense, he could live a good life. I think they'll use him more.
I'm riding Kamara this week in fantasy for one of the playoff games. So I agree with you. I think he's a dual threat guy. He can run, he can catch, he can do just about everything. The problem is he hasn't really shown up so far this season. There's been a few games here and there.
Yeah.
But when he shows up big. So
yeah, I think I'd go Kamara, Cook, A.J. Brown. Pollard would be the one it'd probably be dealer's choice between Kamara and Pollard. Maybe you don't want the
split with Zeke and
the split with Zeke and Pollard, but he does get those catches and he's been much more productive. And with that, you look at I guess give or take, probably more overall usage with Kamara, but Pollard with the more explosive plays. Dealer's choice on that one, I think. But I'd probably lean Kamara, Cook, A.J. Brown in that one. Next one, full PPR pick 2, Paris Campbell, Switek, Palmer, and David Montgomery, Richard White, Deontay Foreman, Jamal Williams, Ramondre Stevenson. Pick 2 of those. Let's go to the wide receiver ones. I don't know if you can go Palmer with the Chargers guys back. Maybe you can, but I will say in that Chargers game, it looked like Allen was as good as he's been all year long, back to making tough catches, and you just saw him forcing balls into Mike Williams all day long. So I'd probably be a no-go on that one.
Especially going up against Tennessee, which tends to give a lot of things down the middle too, to the tight ends and things like that. So probably not the best one there.
That one's tough. Paris probably has the best upside against a defense that has been poor in the Vikings. So maybe you ride Paris. Hope he hits a big play or two. Skoranek, I don't know.
I kind of like Skoranek. I'll tell you. You look at what he was able to do last week.
Yeah.
He looks like Baker definitely was looking for him. He plays in the slot at times. Sometimes he plays outside. But they keep him in a lot of plays because he's also a good blocker. He gets involved when it comes to run blocking. So they keep him in there. So you have a shot of at least getting something from him because he's on the field as often as he is. But you just don't know what you're going to get out of that offense. That's the problem.
Yeah, and it's going to be in cold weather in Green Bay. That would give me pause, but I think he probably would get the at least most touches overall. So I'd probably go Campbell just because they play the weakest defense, and Skoranek probably because he'll get at least the most looks. And then running back wise, I think you got to grab Deontay Foreman. The Carolina Panthers are running 45 run plays a game. And we talked about, Pittsburgh's run defense was really, really poor last week versus the Ravens. I look for that to continue this week versus the Cardinals. Maybe you go Stevenson, but I'd be
if he even plays, though. That's the question with him is he's questionable. Now, I think he practiced during the non-media section of practice. Yeah. But I don't know what that bodes. He's still listed as questionable. And even if he does go, how healthy is he going to be? He's definitely the more upside guy, but that's a tough one.
Yeah, I think probably what I would do would go Montgomery and Foreman. Montgomery's not going to have probably a high upside, especially in that Eagles, but you at least know he's going to get touches. It's going to at least be 15 to 18 carries. The other guys, I just don't know about. I don't think you can trust Ramondre coming off the health, and New England,
offensively, not the best offense.
Yeah, and then you got the Lions. They were trotting out 4 different running backs last week in that game. And then you have them going up against that Jets defense. Now, I know the Jets defense has been susceptible to the run, but you saw it. Justin Jackson was getting carries. Jamal Williams was getting carries. DeAndre Swift was getting carries. It just, I don't know. You'll probably get the touchdowns if they get down there on the goal line. That would be the only thing. But I think Montgomery's probably the safer pick, just because you know what he's going to get, and he'll get touches in and around the goal line. So I'd probably go Montgomery, and Foreman would be a definite for me on this one for sure.
I agree. There's definitely the safer bet. And for the playoffs, I'd rather go with safer than upside. Yeah. It's too risky for win or go home type of situation.
Yeah. I go touches. If you tell me he's going to get touches and he has a bad game, oh well. But if you tell me he's not going to get touches and you're just living off 1 or 2 big plays, I always go touches, especially in playoff games like that. So Foreman, Montgomery definitely going to get a majority of the touches in that. All right, let's move on to the Tennessee Titans versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Our colleague Dynamite David has been in a sad state the last handful of weeks here, and rightfully so, as terrible as the Tennessee Titans have looked, and they've played themselves into sort of a playoff situation here with the Jags. But Chargers looked good last week. Do we say they're getting their stuff together? Because as soon as we say that, we both know the Tennessee Titans are winning this game, 19-16, and the Chargers are going to do something stupid. So I was just to stay away, even as bad as the Titans looked. I do got a couple player props in this one, probably leaning towards the Chargers side of things, but I can't make myself fall into this Chargers trap again, and Tennessee Titans have looked just god-awful for 4 weeks now.
Dude, we are on the same wavelength when it comes to this game. I feel the exact same way. I think the Chargers is probably the smarter play here, especially with the way Tennessee's been playing. But I'm not touching it because as soon as I do, I know it's going to turn back on me.
Yeah.
So I'll give you what my plays are for this game. I got Austin Eckler over 40 and a half rushing yards at minus 120. Austin Eckler is such a weapon. I mean, regardless, I think he can do it even against a pretty good defense. But this Tennessee defense, rush defense, is about middle of the pack. They're most susceptible during the pass, but I think they can also give up runs, especially with a guy as explosive as Eckler is. I got Mike Williams over 4.5 receptions for the game. I was going to go with Allen here because he looks a lot better. He looks healthy, but the over-under on him was a little too high for my liking. And then my last one here, Keenan Allen, anytime touchdown plus 128. As I mentioned earlier, this Titans team, susceptible to the pass. So I'm going to go ahead and ride Allen here. Looking healthy again. I like me some Allen.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-player props in this one. I got a couple parlays as well. Anytime touchdown, Mike Williams plus 145. And I thought there was pretty good value in the 2+ touchdowns for Mike Williams. That was plus 950. Much better than the Travis Kelce plus 245.
Yeah, I think you could find a player out there to score anytime with better odds than Travis Kelce to score 2.
Yes, I know. All right, so that's how do you I know we didn't want to bet on the spread, but how do you think this game is going to go? Do you think the Chargers are going to make a little run here towards the end, or it's just going to continue to be up, down, up, down, up, down?
I don't know. I think this Chargers team can take it. It really depends on how they come out, because this is the thing. This Tennessee team can run the ball. You saw Derrick Henry even last week. If it wasn't for that big fumble he had, that game completely turned around after that moment. But Derrick Henry is such a good back, whether it's catching the ball or running the ball. He's so explosive. He's a big back. He runs over people. If you let them establish their running game, then they're going to keep it close. They're going to keep it, within striking distance. But if this Chargers team can get a lead, I don't think this Titans team has the weapons on offense, especially in the passing game. And you saw the mistakes that Tannehill makes. I don't think they've got the weapons on offense in the passing attack to be able to keep up with this Chargers offense. So if the Chargers get up early, I think that there's no looking back.
Yeah, I think so as well. All right, we'll move on to the next one, and this is basically just going to be the game I've already accepted I'm going to lose money on because I don't understand this spread whatsoever. And I think we just call these the Vegas specials, where they let everybody bet on the Cincinnati Bengals, and then Tampa Bay comes back in the dying minutes after the Bengals have dominated. But Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay's getting 3.5 points. I just don't understand. I'm not 100% sure Tampa Bay can score 3.5 points. So you're telling me that the Bengals are going to score 3 points so they cover? I'm just big on the Bengals here. I know it's road. I know they've been playing hot, so they're due for a letdown. But what has Tampa Bay done literally all season long? This isn't a 2-week stretch. This isn't a 4-week stretch. This is a 15-week stretch where Tampa Bay has not been able to score points. And if you aren't going to be able to score points, I just saw it last week with the Cleveland Browns. If you cannot score points, Cincinnati's going to get to 24. And I don't know. I'm all Cincinnati in this one. I got Cincinnati first half -2.5. I got Cincinnati spread in this one. What'd you make of this game?
Same thing. I have the same exact thought that you do. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Higgins and Boyd are back this week,
yes,
fully healthy. And that just adds more weapons. So I don't see how this Tampa Bay defense, as good as they can be at times, I don't see how they can stop all these weapons. And even if they manage to somehow slow these guys down, I don't see how their offense going up against this Cincinnati Bengal defense, which hasn't been bad this season, I don't see how they can put up the points. I don't see it. So I'm with you. I'm riding the Bengals here, halftime spread, and I've also got them at -3.5, -110 for the full game here. I do have a couple prop bets that I'm not too crazy about. This is more just of a gut feeling thing. I've got Bright over 14.5 receiving yards at -110. I got Peering at over 11.5 rushing yards. I know that they've got their main running back, back in the fold, but he looked really explosive when he took over from Mixon. So I think that he's got a good shot at getting at least some playing time here in this one. And then I do have the slimmest of possibilities here that somehow Tampa Bay is manages to get a score here. I think that if anyone gets it, it's probably going to be Evans, anytime touchdown +140.
He's more likely to drop a touchdown or have one called back. I think.
Hey, don't spoil don't rain on my parade, okay?
Is there a prop bet for have drop touchdown or called back on holding?
I don't know, but if there is, I'd probably take that over the anytime touchdown.
All right, the East Coast biased Sunday night game of the week. For some reason, this game is being put on the main event. I get its importance, but both these teams suck. I'm sorry. They aren't all that entertaining to watch. The Washington defensive line, I admit, is very good, but both offenses are just a chore. If I ask you, when is the last time you think the New York Giants won a football game?
Listen, don't start with me, okay? You know how much of a supporter I've been of this Giants team, and they finally start having a good record, and now you're gonna bring me down again. Come on now.
Well, it would be November 15th, where they barely held on versus the Houston Texans. So they aren't exactly coming in here on fire, but needless to say, I'm going to ride the 4.5 because I just watched these two teams play to a tie 2 weeks ago, and they are basically just clones of each other. I think 4.5 is way too much. I don't think Washington has all that much of a home field. Granted, the Giants have looked worse and worse. They looked awful last week versus the Eagles, but we mentioned it. That game didn't mean anything to them. This game means everything to them. This game probably decides really who that last playoff spot's going to go to, because Seattle is melting down as quickly as possible. So I'm all Giants plus a 4.5. I just think this is a 3-point game either way. I think Washington probably wins it, but 4.5 just seemed like a little too much for this Washington team, who I haven't seen play good offense all year long.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm actually going to go ahead and ride the Giants here at plus 4.5 at minus 110. Now, you mentioned the fact that both these offenses have been struggling as of late, and I'll tell you how much they're struggling, okay? Barkley, the main weapon for the Giants, is at plus 103 for an anytime touchdown. I can't remember the last time that a starting running back, not just a starting running back, a big name like Saquon, had plus value on him for an anytime touchdown. So that kind of tells you where things are offensively for these two teams. So I've got the Giants here at plus 4.5. I got McLaurin over 60.5 receiving yards. I don't know how he's going to get there, but I've got a feeling. I've got Barkley anytime touchdown plus 103, and then I've got McLaurin anytime touchdown plus 155. Now, mind you, this game could end up 7-7. But hopefully, if it does, both of those guys score a touchdown, and that can make some money.
Can they tie for 2 weeks in a row? And
if anybody could, it's definitely these two teams.
yes, I know. They probably both kneel in overtime. All right. I will admit the Monday Night Football game somehow managed to be worse than the one last week.
Don't insult me like that.
Oh, please. You've watched this team play football, too.
Every single game.
I'm willing to bet someone fell asleep when it was 16-3 on Thursday night.
Oh, no, I stayed up for every single play.
I'm willing to bet someone hit the old snooze button at 16-3. The Rams go to the Packers. Packers 7-point favorites. I thought this line was a bit extreme, considering both these teams are atrocious. Nonetheless, I've almost talked myself into Green Bay because their schedule is pretty god-awful to close out. They're going to end up being that last stupid NFC team to get a playoff spot. But I just didn't have a play. I'm not taking Green Bay as 7-point favorites, but I'm not taking the Rams either, because for 3.5 quarters, they were absolutely atrocious in that Raiders game. So this one's just called a write-off, and then when I'm bored Monday night at 6:30, I might throw some player props on there.
Exactly. And listen, that's exactly what this game is. I don't think this is a game that you take right now. This is more of a, let's see how Saturday and Sunday go. We make a little money. You wait for Monday night.
You
put
lose
a little
it
extra
on
money
Monday.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what we do, right? But listen, I got a couple plays here. And I always tell people whenever I do put any money on any Ram game.
Allen Robinson, anytime touchdown.
No, that's done with. But listen, I always say, keep in mind, I'm a Ram fan, so there's a little bit of bias when it comes to making some of these picks. So I got the Rams here plus 7. I know it's a little crazy, but this team's actually been in games. You know, this defense isn't great, but they do tend to keep opponents at low scores, and they've been in just about every single game over the last few weeks. Maybe this Baker Mayfield, arrival is going to reignite this team. I don't think so, but maybe it does. So I'm going to go ahead and ride the Rams here at plus 7. I do have a couple of prop bets here that might, like I said, you might be able to play if you make a little money this Saturday or Sunday. I got Skoranek over 31.5 receiving yards. We talked about it when we were giving some advice. He seems to be in a lot of the snaps because he's a good blocker when it comes to the running game. And, he's pretty good wide receiver. He's kind of come into his own. He had a pretty good game last week with Baker Mayfield under center. So I'm going to ride him over 31.5 yards at minus 110. And then I got Allen Lazard over 49.5 yards at minus 110 also. And that's more of the Rams tend to give up a lot of things, like in the middle. They don't give a lot of deep plays, but they do give up a lot of short stuff here. And I think that there's a good chance that Lazard can get some plays here. But that's pretty much it for this game.
Yeah, they adjusted to my Christian Watson. I had a nice 2.5 week run before they started making him minus on the touchdown. So nothing for me in that one. Maybe Monday I might get something. I got a couple parlays. We got 2 of my trio of touchdowns. We're going to go in the Baltimore game. Dobbins, Huntley, Edwards, all anytime touchdowns. That's a nice 55-1. I don't know if it will hit. Like I said, I don't know if they'll run Huntley based on his concussion last weekend, the extreme drop-off that it would be to go to the third. But Dobbins, Huntley, Edwards, 55-1 anytime touchdown. And as you know, Allen, Diggs, Davis, anytime touchdown. We're only at 9-1 on that one, but still pretty decent value. Next up, touchdown pass over. Half touchdown pass. So if they get one, we're going Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Desmond Ridder. That one's plus 228. So one touchdown pass at least for Fields, Wilson, and Ridder. I already told you about my interception parlay of the Saturday special. Watson, Ryan, Tua, all interceptions. I got a 2-game parlay. Gus Edwards, 50-plus yards. J.K. Dobbins, 65-plus yards at 6-1. I actually really, really like that one. I think that's one to grab. 50-plus for Edwards, 65-plus for Dobbins, 6-1. Really good value in that one. And then 80-plus receiving yards for Christian Kirk and anytime touchdown, plus 577 for that one. I think that one's pretty good. You might want to lower it to that sort of 70 plus for Christian Kirk. That drops it down to the fours. I think he's been mostly in the 70s when he's had his good games, so you might not want to bump it up to that 80 and get, like 2 extra points on that one. So maybe drop that down to 70 plus anytime touchdown. But I got 80 plus and anytime touchdown at 577. Those are my parlays for the week. What do you got?
I've got a few here. I've got 3, I believe. So my first one originally was a 3-legger. As I mentioned earlier, I had a 3-leg parlay. Had the Vikings money line, Cowboys money line, and the Chiefs money line. As I mentioned earlier, though, that money line odds completely jumped for Kansas City. So I took Kansas City off. I still got Minnesota money line and Cowboys money line. That's plus 125. I think both of these teams can pull it off, and you're not having to worry about the spread there. Then I've got a 3-leg underdog money line parlay. I got Cardinals money line, Patriots money line, and Giants money line at 10-1. It's almost 11-1 on that one. And my last one here, it's probably a little too late for this one now, but I had a same game parlay, Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson to score anytime touchdowns, and that's at plus 245. But probably a little too late for that one now. Maybe you can get some live action on it.
Yeah, you probably can still get some live action. I don't know if there's been a score. It's 105. Probably not a score yet, so you can probably get in on it and get pretty good. All right, that's our show. Be sure to like and subscribe to not miss any of our content. We'll be back next week. Probably on Saturday again, since all the Saturday games are going on. Like, subscribe. That's our show, and we're out.